What if I were to tell you that all along, from the very beginning, and especially right up to the end, Sephiroth has been telling us the answers to all of our questions. Right in front of us the whole time, with many of the elements in Rebirth further expanding our understanding and supporting that assertion. What I'm about to present to you is something I haven't seen many people discussing, so let's break it all down. The first concept we're going to explore is the nature of the planet itself and how it actually functions. Here are some of the things we know about the planet of Gaia, as well as some associated questions for which we may not have all the answers at this time. According to Bugenhagen, planetology is, in part,
not simply the study of the cosmos and the celestial bodies that dwell in it. Rather, it is a quest to comprehend the cyclical nature of life.
That means that life and the planet operate in a
cycle of continuous convergence and divergence,
which can be studied. We also know mankind was born from its soil, and upon death, the body withers and returns to the planet. Similarly, the mind, spirit, soul comes from the Lifestream, and at the time of death,
our bodies may disappear when we die, but our spirits still live on. We return to the planet, rejoin the Lifestream, and in time give rise to new life.
We also know the Lifestream is
an apt name, though it is as much a reservoir as it is a stream, being the sum of the planet's spiritual energy.
The Lifestream is also comprised of the accumulated memories, emotions, knowledge, hopes, and dreams of every individual who has ever lived.
It is the very essence of our star, the blood coursing through its planetary veins. And if ever that essence were to be entirely depleted,
planet runs out of energy. It and everything on it dies.
The planet needs the Lifestream to survive. And the planet has a will of its own.
The flow of the great river that is the planet, from inception to oblivion.
And it exercises that will via the Whispers. The Whispers are
perhaps best described as arbiters of fate. They are drawn to those who attempt to alter destiny's course and ensure they do not.
Like capital D? Destiny? And you're saying that that flow is somehow fixed?
So if we're destined for a bleak future, these Whispers will try to keep us on that course?
They're led by the Whisper Harbinger, which is a weapon just as much as those featured in Rebirth. The Whispers exist and function across all worlds which make up the planet. The Whispers can only be seen by those who defy destiny, or when coming into contact with someone who attempts to alter the course of destiny.
Are you blind?
And as introduced in Rebirth,
the planet encompasses a multitude of worlds, ever unfolding. Some quickly perish, while others endure. Yet even the most resilient worlds are doomed to fade.
this new and mysterious concept of multiple worlds was fascinating for open-minded players who wanted the Final Fantasy VII they knew and loved, but more significantly expanded. Personally, I fell into this camp myself. As it turns out, such a prospect was concerning for players of the OG Final Fantasy VII, who would have preferred for Square Enix to have made an exact one-to-one remake of the original PS1 game with better visuals on modern hardware. In fact, this sentiment was vocalized enough that after Remake debuted in 2020, fans began to speculate whether the Whispers, and their role as custodians to maintain the sacred course of the story's events, were a meta-level reference by the developers to represent purist fans' desires for zero change to the original game. The creatives behind Remake and Rebirth obviously made another call, however, and the concept of these worlds has become canon. But when and how does the planet decide to form these new worlds? And what causes them to be created? Based on the information available in Rebirth, it appears one way these worlds are born comes through a divergence from the intended will of the planet. When choices are made which branch from the course of destiny, it appears new worlds are potentially made as represented by a rainbow effect seen in Rebirth. However, in order for an individual to break from the will of the planet, a world containing that person must already exist in the first place. So it's reasonable to conclude that the planet also materializes worlds and populates them with all forms of life by tapping into the spiritual energy of the Lifestream, as stated by Bugenhagen previously. Additionally, one Rebirth NPC also theorizes that the planet may even create worlds from more metaphysical sources as well.
So, my parents are no longer with us, here, that is, but I believe they're still out there, on another plane. I've been reading a bunch of theories about this alternate world in the hope of going there someday. And over the course of my studies, I stumbled across a fascinating theory. It addressed the issue of what the Lifestream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory, but it's incomplete. What about our hopes and dreams? We remember those, don't we? So what if spiritual energy doesn't distinguish between our real, lived memories and the unrealized desires buried deep in our hearts? What if coming into contact with that energy allowed us to peer through the looking glass, so to speak? It's just an idea, but I hope to find the truth someday.
Aerith seems to back up this theory by indicating that one world was,
let's just call it a dream. My dream, to be precise.
Was Aerith able to manifest the date world via the Lifestream using her hopes and dreams? We also know that all inhabitants of Gaia seem to have separate existences across these disparate worlds. But how exactly does this process work when a consciousness re-enters the Lifestream and helps in the creation of a new life? I think there's three main possibilities. Is a person's spiritual energy diffused and used to create new, completely different life within the same world where they died? Or is a completely new life created, but in a different world instead? Or, hear me out, are the people reborn as themselves, but in a different world, so their spiritual energy remains, but when new life is born out of the Lifestream, it's still them? Sephiroth is aware this multitude of world exists and is, at least in some manner, connected as one conscious being across the worlds. He also appears to exist outside of any specific world at the edge of creation as well. Sephiroth also uses the black robes to physically manifest himself and exert control and manipulation of people and events. Based on Aerith's uncanny knowledge of events during Remake,
he's my bodyguard. And a soldier. Pretty cool, huh?
Huh?
I guessed. From the sword.
and certain sequences of Rebirth.
Whatever happens, don't blame yourself.
Is there enough evidence to deduce that Aerith also possesses some power which is not contained to singular worlds?
What do you mean?
All made whole forever.
There's no such thing as forever.
We also learned that worlds that are fading or about to expire have a rift which becomes visible in the sky. But what's the nature of this rift and what does it exactly represent? If we take a look at Zack's experiences, a rift was not present in the skies of the Terrier world during the opening prologue of Rebirth. Zack only first sees it after being told by Elmyra that people are saying the world is ending. But Elmyra and the other NPCs of the Sector 5 slums seem to have known about the rift for a while, and they most certainly wouldn't have grappled with why it was in the sky or what it meant in the short time it took for Zack to move Aerith and hide away from Shinra until Elmyra could come to them. So the reasonable conclusion is Zack couldn't have seen it at first, but then only could after Elmira mentioned it and recent events caused Zack to feel as though the world or his world could be ending. Are these rifts only visible to people who have accepted that the world is going to end? And is that why only Cloud can see the one at the end of Rebirth, but the rest of the party cannot?
Don't look up.
Well, now I gotta look.
Fine, but don't let it get to you.
Don't let what get to me?
Now that we've discussed at least 3 potential ways the various worlds might be created, how are these different versions of Gaia connected via the Lifestream? Do they share one Lifestream? Does each world have their own measure of the Lifestream? And how or why do worlds endure or fade at different paces? Is the length of their survival based on their own shares of the Lifestream? While we don't have enough information to make a concrete determination one way or the other about how the worlds exist and interact with the Lifestream, we do know a few details with which we can establish a small foundation to build upon in Part 3. All worlds are connected via the Lifestream, as demonstrated by Cloud seeing through to Aerith's dream world while he was sleeping, or when Aerith could feel Zack's hand. We do know that it is possible for an individual world's portion of the Lifestream to dry up, as we saw that happen at the empty reactor in Rebirth.
Seems it's all out of Mako. Pump's still sucking away, but the only thing it's pulling up is dirt.
Meaning?
That the Lifestream's bone dry. Bomb one reactor, bomb them all. Planet's done either way.
We also know worlds can be united or parted through external influence which doesn't come from the planet, such as when Sephiroth parted Cloud and Zack at the end of Rebirth, or when Sephiroth sent Zack between worlds at the church. And we know worlds can also be merged into one another via external intervention, which seems at least in part what Sephiroth is up to. What effect does this merger have on the inhabitants of those worlds? And how does this type of merger impact the Lifestream?
Listen.
Sephiroth also clued us into the idea that something feeds off of negative energy such as despair and grief, either Sephiroth himself, JENOVA, or the unification of these worlds. But why is Sephiroth trying to feed the planet with negative energy?
War can put things right, beget anger, desolation, hatred, and in its wake, new unity. A people rejuvenated, and a planet once more made whole.
And as a last question around this concept of a multitude of worlds, did they always exist and the planet has always been made up of them? I want to dig into that point specifically next, as I believe all of the lore and information we've already reviewed from Remake and Rebirth can aid us in not only understanding the mechanics of how the planet and its worlds function, but provide us with a fairly reasonable answer to this question and its greater impact on what's to come. But before we can start putting these pieces together, there's one more topic which looms over everything in Remake and Rebirth, which must be discussed. There's still so much we don't know about JENOVA. Obviously, the devs have been intentional about holding back key pieces of information to be revealed in Part 3. But even if we look across the entire compilation of Final Fantasy VII, from the original game to now, so much of the lore around JENOVA has just never been explored. And while we don't have anywhere close to a puzzle box to know what the picture will ultimately resemble, I do think Remake and Rebirth presented us with just enough pieces that we can begin fitting them together and get a rough idea of what parts of it will look like. Let's review what we do know. JENOVA came from space and crashed on Gaia roughly 2,000 years ago.
Long ago, a wound marred the northern lands.
The specimen found in strata dating back 2,000 years smiled with what could only be described as ethereal grace. She needed a name, and so I dubbed her JENOVA.
This raises the question of how JENOVA actually came to Gaia. Did JENOVA arrive via the Gi's homeworld that it had already consumed? When Guy Natak is narrating during the final battle of the Gi village, he describes the end of their homeworld.
With the passing of eons, the star we called home began to wane, until at last it was subsumed by your own. The earth shook, seas boiled, skies shattered, and time stopped. Few of my people survived the chaos and calamity. Those who did began a new life here. But to the planet, we were not welcome, not in life nor in death.
JENOVA is referred to as the Calamity from the Skies and is a destroyer of worlds. And according to Bugenhagen, the Gi arrived many millennia ago. Is it possible that these two are connected? One additional possibility is that the Gi summoned JENOVA via the black materia before the Cetra could steal it. Guy Natak stated,
"From the planet, we claim the greatest of materia, a most sacred treasure, and imbued it with our desire for freedom. After an eternity, the materia began to stir, and thus did we rejoice, knowing that salvation was within our grasp."
Perhaps as the Cetra locked away the black materia, JENOVA arrived as a result. Or is there some other explanation entirely for JENOVA's arrival? JENOVA also possesses an ability to mimic the dead.
Though in time we triumphed over the calamity visited upon us by the stars, tragedy would nevertheless be our ultimate reward. For the children of men feared us. For the children of man envied us. Perhaps their enmity was seeded by our celestial adversary. None can say. A deceiver that stole the faces of the dead, of mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers lost. With their voices did it sow the seeds of discord among our people, among the children of man.
The Cetra were the original stewards of the planet prior to JENOVA's arrival, and they could communicate with the planet to understand its desires and needs. And we know the Cetra stood against JENOVA, just as they did the Gi.
It has ever been our sacred duty to protect our planet against any who would threaten it. They who came from without were one such threat.
Lastly, we know that JENOVA was successful in basically killing off pretty much almost all of the Cetra.
Alas, the ancients themselves are long gone. 2,000 years ago, a meteor brought an end to their civilization.
Regardless, we had been forsaken by fate, abandoned to unquenchable anger and unbearable grief, condemned and driven forth, powerless to forestall the coming of our end. For the planet did we lay down our lives in battle, and in death returned to her embrace.
But before their fiery end, did the ancients find their promised land? Even now, we have only to wonder.
However, since JENOVA did not originate from the Lifestream, it couldn't rejoin the Lifestream, just as the Gi could not.
Those not born of the Lifestream can never join its flow. One cannot return to that from which one did not arise.
Yet our adversary did not. Could not. Thus did it fall into a deep slumber. And in the long silence of its sleep, it was given the name JENOVA.
Now that we've explored the nature of the planet, its multiple concurrent realities, the lifestream which bridges them, and the external entity known as JENOVA, I'll start to fit some of the puzzle pieces together in a manner which makes the most sense to me. And to do so, I'll start where we left off a moment ago and work backwards. How exactly did the Cetra manage to stop JENOVA? JENOVA was a life force from beyond the Cetra's own world. Its nature was unknown to the ancients, and JENOVA possessed the power to adjust its appearance, speech, and behaviors to imitate other creatures. We know from the scene in the Temple of the Ancients that the Cetra teamed up with humans to fight JENOVA. From what we've learned, the Cetra essentially went almost extinct, and the only result their alliance with the humans could muster was to force JENOVA into a form of stalemate and stasis. But how was this achieved? Perhaps the Cetra knew enough about the planet to be aware of its multiple worlds, and how the lifestream connects them. But even if they did, how would that help them in their battle to subdue JENOVA? Here's the reasonable explanation to me, and the case I'll make for how the blurry picture on the puzzle box looks to me by the end of Rebirth. The planet was once whole, and served as the home of the ancients, until the arrival of JENOVA. Recognizing they were unable to beat this alien entity, and with the survival of the planet they loved at stake, they were forced to split their home into multiple realities. The first rainbowed action, perhaps? The Cetra used their knowledge of the lifestream to divide the planet into a multitude of worlds, and by doing so, JENOVA, who was unable to be absorbed into the lifestream, was instead pulled apart and splintered across all those worlds. It's reasonable to conclude that the Cetra, having immense and intimate knowledge of the planet and the lifestream, might have been the first to break the will of the planet, with the understanding that it would split the planet into multiple worlds, and that all life of the planet would continue via the lifestream. However, JENOVA would be unable to wreak havoc upon the planet in its disassembled state. It's also fairly plausible that the Whispers were created by the planet as a reaction to the Cetra's defiance and subsequent disappearance. Without the Cetra to care for it, the planet may have formed its first weapon, the Whisper Harbinger, as a means of ensuring its own will is followed. Based on this theory, the events which play out on an individual world are unable to bring about a final resolution for Sephiroth, JENOVA, or the Gi, because those events are contained to that single reality. As such, it stands to reason that in order for anything to truly affect these aspects of our story, the disparate worlds of the planet would need to come back together, a homecoming of sorts. And since we have yet to see anything across all of the worlds of Final Fantasy VII that resembles the actual Promised Land,
This isn't the Promised Land. I mean, just look around. It can't be. Not with all this sadness and anger.
This place. Is it the Promised Land?
I'm sorry, but I don't think it is.
Of course. Figures.
It's also logical that the scriptures passed down by the ancients tell of a time when the planet they loved would once again be made whole, a thought which, to them, probably seemed like a distant promise to return the land back to how it was before.
Unto her promised land shall we one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may we take our place in paradise.
If this is truly how the puzzle fits together, it appears Sephiroth may have figured out the box's cover art as well, with his words and actions backing it up. Let's evaluate what we know about Sephiroth and his master plan based on what has been presented in Remake and Rebirth. Cloud believes
he wants to finish what he started. He wants to reclaim his birthright and rule over the planet with JENOVA at his side.
Aerith seems to think he's going against the way that things should be.
And you're wrong. Everything about you is wrong.
There's no such thing as forever.
No. You're wrong.
We also know Sephiroth doesn't want Cloud to die. Rather, he wants Cloud's help.
I have a favor to ask. Our beloved planet is dying. Slowly, silently, painfully. Can you bear to see the planet suffer? Cloud. That which binds us together would be no more, and I would be loath to live in such a world, which is why I must ask you this one favor. Don't worry, it's a simple thing. Run, Cloud. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live. Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end. Nor will I have you end. Cloud, lend me your strength. Let us defy destiny together.
Leave me out of it.
How very stubborn of you. Perhaps you need a little push.
Sephiroth wants the Black Materia, presumably to call forth a meteor capable of causing catastrophic damage to the planet, as seen in Shinra's visual entertainment hall during Remake and also shown in Rebirth. Guy Natak also all but confirmed this function of the Black Materia when he begged the party to return it to the Guy.
Our ultimate salvation is cessation. It is nothingness. Our wish is not to exist, but rather to no longer exist.
It's hard to feel at ease around folks whose only desire is death. And if the planet won't let them have it, well, who's to say they won't let the planet have it?
We ask that you retrieve it, the Black Materia, key to our oblivion. Please, it alone can liberate us from this endless dream.
Sephiroth appears to have needed the party to help destroy the Whisper Harbinger and break the planet's hold over Destiny so he could take control of the Whispers himself. Perhaps to unbind those who were born on Gaia from the planet and the Lifestream and maybe bind them to whatever Sephiroth wants to create?
They're not bound to the planet, and so she rejects them.
Because you have to come from the Lifestream to return to it.
All born are bound to her. Should this world be unmade, so too shall her children.
So despite his desire to obtain the Black Materia and summon Meteor, outright destruction of the planet doesn't seem to be Sephiroth's actual intent. However, when Sephiroth grabbed the Black Materia in Rebirth, he called it
the key, which grants access to the true counterpart hidden between worlds.
And we know Sephiroth didn't want the Remake Beagle world to have a white materia, because when Cloud still possessed it after his time spent in Aerith's dream world, Sephiroth stated,
"That doesn't belong here." Very poor form.
While we don't have enough information by the end of Rebirth to understand why, the existence of a white materia is clearly not something Sephiroth wants. And perhaps he even formed the singularity at the end of Remake, knowing Aerith would need to use or empty her white materia to modify it as she did, thus his way of getting rid of it? And the concept of a reunion has been referenced many, many times.
A touching reunion. For the future is bright. We are to bear witness to the reunion of worlds.
Reunion.
And based on some very specific lines of dialogue during the Temple of the Ancients, it seems extremely plausible Sephiroth is trying to reunite all of the worlds which make up the planet with the intention of making it and JENOVA whole.
Yet I shall remain. I, son of JENOVA, will at last claim my birthright. My dominion shall reach into infinity. It shall encompass worlds unbound by fate and histories unwritten. My fragmented mother, these errant worlds, all shall be one again.
The reunion.
All made whole forever.
There's no such thing as forever.
Ah, but there will be.
This statement seems to tie back to what Sephiroth said in the Nibelheim reactor way back at the beginning of Rebirth.
Together we will reclaim our world, and I know exactly how we can do that. The Promised Land. But there's no need to be sad, Mother. Because I'm here for you. Now and forever.
Maybe the Promised Land is not just a specific location in one world as Shinra thought, but instead only exists when all of the worlds are united as one? Sephiroth's every move appears to be leading to a reunification of the worlds of the planet and JENOVA, as foretold by the Cetra in the Temple of the Ancients.
It's upon us. The reunion, when worlds merge. When spite and sorrow are harvested to feed the planet.
Heed well our warning of that which is to come. The reunion. When our adversaries' scattered malignancy shall converge to plague the planet once more.
And while we've gone over most of the evidence to that effect, there's still one disturbing part of Sephiroth's plan that I still want to address. From what we've seen across multiple worlds, it appears Sephiroth is intentionally hunting Aerith in every world with the intent to kill her. He even confirms as much to Aerith herself, twice.
So this is where you've been hiding, in a world that has accepted its fate. Just as you must.
How can you want this, Sephiroth? How can you want an eternity of loneliness?
Be gone. Your part is played.
With this context, when Aerith runs at the introduction of Sephiroth's theme during the opening of the remake, a whole new meaning is added to that moment. But why would Sephiroth go through such effort? Besides being extremely vindictive, what reason could he have to actively hunt her down? I believe we have a couple of clues to Sephiroth's intent. As we reviewed earlier, after people die and enter the lifestream, it takes a while before their energy in the lifestream then gives rise to new life.
In time, yeah.
Sephiroth's endgame has something to do with the creation of a forever in which the cycle of life and death would be disrupted.
Ah. but there will be. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end. Nor will I have you end.
Sephiroth has been unifying worlds, resulting in the screams of the planet.
Listen to the planet, Cloud. To her ecstatic cries, her rapture.
Screaming! It's screaming!
What you heard just now were the voices of the planet. Those born into this world, who lived and who died, who returned. They're howling in pain.
Because of him, Sephiroth?
Their words, they don't reach him. All these moments and memories, precious and fleeting, they're like rain rolling off his back. And when they're gone, he won't cry or shout or anything.
From this, we can deduce that if people have died and their essence or consciousness is in the Lifestream at the time those worlds are unified, they may cease to exist. And on the flip side of that coin, what would happen to the multiple versions of everyone who are alive and not in the Lifestream at the time Sephiroth successfully executes the final unification? Do all of the worlds converge and suddenly there's a single version of every living person who ends up in one unified world and live together? But if Sephiroth really is trying to create an eternity where no one dies, it's entirely possible Sephiroth is trying to eliminate Aerith from all worlds prior to executing the final unification, leaving her spiritual energy in the limbo period across all worlds so she wouldn't be present as the remaining Cetra to rival him in the new unified forever Sephiroth is creating.
He has to be stopped by a Cetra. And I'm the last.
So there you have it. We set out to break down the lore and mysteries found thus far in the Final Fantasy VII Remake Project, helping us all who were feeling exactly like Zack.
What in the hell is going on?
And make the case for how these puzzle pieces fit together in the way that makes the most sense. If you're with me and everything in this video makes a lot of sense to you too, let us know in the comments. Conversely, if you disagree or have your own takeaways from Remake and Rebirth, let us know as well and share your own thoughts with us. And for those fans who have only played the Remake series and are trying to remain spoiler-free until Part 3, I did my best to record this video without using any of the other information found in the Final Fantasy VII Compilation, but I would just recommend being super careful when diving into the comments, just in case folks share more info than what was found in Remake and Rebirth. A big shout out to Blitz for helping me to give shape to the ideas bouncing around in my head. Go check him out on YouTube, Twitch, and all the socials. Also be sure to check out Kilika Beats, who provided all of the fantastic lo-fi tracks that are found in this video. You can find their awesome video on YouTube and linked in the description as well. And also to my wife, who's been so supportive as I've started diving into content creation. Thank you so much for exploring these topics with me, and I'll see you in the next video.